But Wes Anderson, man, he's been around for a long time now. This is his 11th movie. He's coming off of The French Dispatch. I reviewed that a couple of years ago on the pod. Gotta admit, wasn't a huge fan of it. It might be my least favorite Wes Anderson film, and I'm a big, big fan of Wes Anderson. But the space that he occupies in this current landscape is really interesting because I think Wes Anderson is a director that does not stray away from his style at all. He very much adheres to what has brought him to the dance. He has very specific creative choices that he makes, and he doesn't really deviate from that stuff at all. And Asteroid City is no exception, but this is a new movie that has just an incredible cast, an interesting premise, and we got a chance to go check this out a couple of weeks ago. So with all of that out the way, man, I'll pass it over to you. What did you think about Asteroid City?
Dude, I still have not seen French Dispatch. Crazy. I like skipped a Wes Anderson movie. It's wild. But I was still pretty excited to see Asteroid City. There are some Wes Anderson classics, man. If you haven't done like a at least mini Wes Anderson deep dive, just take some time and go watch his stuff, man. He really is a beast. But like you said, he knows why he's here. He knows how he got here. He knows, like you said, what brought him to the dance, what got him into this filmmaking position and being the legend that Wes Anderson is. And I think Asteroid City is of it doesn't stray too far from that. I don't think. I think he a lot of the film he still has that aesthetic. He still has the colors, like you said. He still has the cast, and all of that is still here, man. But it's an enjoyable movie. It's not great. It's not knock your socks off great. It's probably not top 5 Wes Anderson, but it is something to watch. And I think one of the reasons to watch it is I really like Jason Schwartzman in this movie. I think he does a good job, and I really enjoyed his performance. Not only that, but Wes Anderson always has played on comedy. But something about this movie, I just kept chuckling. I don't know. There were just so many little moments in this movie. It's like, dude, that's pretty funny. And that's funny too. So the comedy was carrying a decent amount for me in this film as well. There's also a big scene that Wes Anderson throws in this movie with like a ton of characters that's crazy. And it's just really cool to see. And it's also kind of bonkers, and I really enjoyed that stuff as well, man. But this dude Wes Anderson, I think I don't it's something about Asteroid City that I'm happy that that Wes Anderson is kind of, I don't know if back is the word because French Dispatch just came out, but I'm happy that he's still making films. But it's something about it that still felt I guess at home to me a little bit, because Wes Anderson is so he feels so I guess stagnant. It feels like a staple in in cinema. So it's good to see that this movie even came out in the first place. But it's a delightful film. I think anybody who's already a Wes Anderson fan will like the movie. I don't know if people who don't know much about Wes Anderson will appreciate it that much, to be honest. Like thinking about it, like I don't know if they'll watch it and say I get it, before going through the Wes Anderson, like Grand Budapest, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they'll understand it. And I think that could be a problem. But as somebody who is a Wes Anderson fan already, it was a fine showing for Wes Anderson. Again, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. But I did like it. And so I'm hoping maybe that, I don't know, man, that people will, I guess, enjoy it the way I enjoy it, but I'm not sure that will be the case. So we'll have to see, man, and hopefully it was better than the first Dispatch for you.
So Asteroid City, it's an interesting premise. So this is another period piece similar to The French Dispatch, which was framed and constructed as more of an anthology film. Asteroid City is sort of taking place in a fictional universe. We're opening up the film, basically setting it in the 1950s, where we have a TV host played by Bryan Cranston. He's introducing this in-universe fictional town called Asteroid City, and we're examining the playwright who actually wrote this particular story. We're seeing the behind-the-scenes machinations of what that looks like, but then most of the film, which takes place in Asteroid City, is basically that film come to life, and so we get to see how everything unfolds. And so really interesting premise there. I like the whole setup, and I thought that was really cool. And it's an inventive way to get a lot of people a part of your film, because we know that this cast, like many of its films, is just hugely stacked. And overall, I really, really enjoyed Asteroid City. This is a big, big step up for me personally from The French Dispatch, which didn't totally work. I felt that the Wes Anderson style, which has made him so famous and made him so celebrated as a director, started to really, really work against him. And it didn't necessarily start with The French Dispatch, because I know that there are detractors of Wes Anderson who have noticed these trends and patterns well before that movie. They might have noticed it
Mm-hmm.
back in the mid 2000s when they saw that, oh, wow, it's like his fifth film. And he's still doing the exact same thing. He's
Mm-hmm.
still using this really specific color palette, these pastel colors, the rigid framing, the hundreds and hundreds of details that are in every single shot that you can't even notice unless you pause the frame, the deadpan humor. All of that stuff makes Wes Anderson who he is as a director. And he's received a lot of criticisms over the years for never deviating from that style, which I think is fair. And
Mm-hmm.
also, in conjunction with that fact, it alienates a big group of people. You know, if you just don't pick up with the style, if you don't really find yourself connecting with his characters because they are pretty surface level and he doesn't ever really let you in emotionally, then that's going to be a difficult experience for some people. For me, I've been watching Wes Anderson for such a long time now. I know exactly what to expect going into a movie of his because I
Right.
know that he's never going to break that formula that he's established. But even with that formula, even with the things that have made him so celebrated over the years, I still think that he finds and manages to do things just a little bit different enough to make it an interesting experience. And Asteroid City was that for me because it is a period piece, because you do have this really gorgeous setting that's taking place in this desert landscape. We're examining all sorts of different things because you get that juxtaposed against like the 50s backdrop play setting of a TV show or of a theatrical experience, you know, watching a theater play unfold. There's also an element of young science and astronomy that's incorporated. There's
Mm-hmm.
UFOs and aliens. There's thoughts and conversations about nuclear power and the atomic bomb. Like there's a lot going on here. And don't Wes never really taps into a lot of it all that deeply. He's not really known to do that. He never dives into things too deeply.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly an experience that's meant to be viewed. I don't want to say passively, but again, we're just sort of witnessing and watching things unfold. And many of the characters here are still adhering to that Wes Anderson style. They're delivering their lines in a very deadpan way. You don't really know how to feel about them because they could be telling a joke or they can be completely fucking serious half the
Mm-hmm.
time. You just don't necessarily know. But Jason Schwartzman, he's outstanding here. He's a longtime collaborator of Wes Anderson. He obviously made his name with Rushmore all those years back in the late 90s. And so it's great to see him back in a central role here because he's mostly been playing supporting roles in Wes Anderson films since that time. I also thought Scarlett Johansson was really good here as well. She's sort of
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
co-lead of the film along with Jason Schwartzman. I thought that she had some pretty good emotional depth. And then you have the entire supporting cast, which there's really no other director, or there's very few directors, I should say, in Hollywood where you have some of the most famous people on earth who will just literally show up for 8 minutes of a Wes Anderson part just to read a couple of lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not many directors have that type of cachet, and we know they're not going to make that much money. They're just really doing it to work with him and to have that experience of being a collaborator of his. And so you got to respect the man for being able to pull out just the best and brightest talent that Hollywood has to offer. I also really like
Thanks.
Jeffrey Wright in this one too. He's super funny and he has a lot of lines that are delivered very, very well. He has to do so in a very serious tone, and I think that he actually stands out here. So overall, once again, I think that it definitely is a step up for Wes in comparison to the French Dispatch. I do want to rewatch that at some point, maybe to feel
Same.
differently about it. Maybe it'll reveal something to me. But overall, I'm happy with it. I think that it's a good outing. But I'll end it off and say I totally agree with you that if you are not a fan of Wes Anderson or not a advent viewer of his movies, this is not going to necessarily win you over. This is going to be a movie that you just look at and
Mm-hmm.
say like, well, what's the point of this? Like, it's boring. It doesn't really connect with me. I don't know anything
Mm-hmm.
about any of these people. But if you've been here for the ride, if you know the type of filmmaker that he is, I think that this is mostly an enjoyable experience. So, folks, those are all of our thoughts on Asteroid City. If you've checked out Wes Anderson's new movie, hit us up and let us know what you think.